This program is brought to you in part by CIE Tours International. For over 80 years featuring all-inclusive tours and go-as-you-please value vacations throughout Ireland and Britain. CIEtours.com. And by Tourism Ireland, celebrating a special year in Ireland, The Gathering 2013. A year-long countrywide celebration of music, food, culture, and unique events. Ireland.com. And by...
Today you'll find the Irish Americans where the need is greatest, giving time, money, talent, and concern to whomever needs it most, contributing as only the Irish can to the spirit of America. Mutual of America, your retirement company.
Hello and welcome. I'm Patricia O'Reilly and I'm delighted you could join us for another edition of Out of Ireland. Coming up on this week's programme, we visit the spectacular region of North Clare, from the majestic cliffs of Moher to the wilderness of the Burn. But first, for a roundup of the week's news from Ireland, over to RTE, Ireland's national broadcasting service.
The days of Seanad Éireann could be numbered after the government today began its campaign to abolish the upper chamber. The Taoiseach announced that a referendum will be held in the autumn. If passed, the Seanad would cease to exist from the time of the next general election.
Senators have known the upper chamber was under threat since October 2009 when Enda Kenny announced he wanted it abolished. Today that possibility moved a step closer with the publication of legislation to allow a referendum. The Taoiseach and Taoiseach outlined the proposals at a news conference.
The Seanad did nothing to challenge the unattainable policies of the Celtic Tiger. And the Seanad is an outmoded institution that owes more to 1930s vocationalist ideas than it does to modern constitutionalist thinking.
As a modern democracy, should we have one parliamentary chamber or should we have two? We have formed the view that we should have one parliamentary chamber and that it should function more effectively and function better.
Mary Robinson, Garrett Fitzgerald, Gordon Wilson, Mary Harney and Douglas Hyde, all former members of the Seanad, the future of which is going to be settled in the ballot box. And a campaign is already up and running to save it, led by a man who previously wanted to get rid of it.
This is a smash and grab raid by the government and the party whips to give to the government and themselves complete power over the legislative process. There will be no checks and balances left after this.
Others, though, including the former chairman of An Bord Snipp Nua, have questioned its value.
I would certainly be happier with one effective parliamentary chamber rather than two ineffective ones with all the added expense.
The upper house can initiate and oversee legislation, but it can't veto bills. So how do sitting senators feel about abolishing it?
Well, I've no problem supporting the legislation to have the referendum in the autumn. However, when the referendum takes place, I'll be voting to retain the Seanad.
If the choice is keep it exactly as it is or abolish it, I would say abolish it. I don't think it's doing a good job and I think it's somewhat wasteful. However, I believe the better alternative, and I'm not sure we'll get that alternative, would be a reform.
Martina Fitzgerald, RT News.
Well, with a fortnight to go before the G8 meeting of world leaders in County Fermanagh, police have closed the main road to the hotel where the two-day summit will be staged. A security fence extending for several kilometres is being erected as part of the biggest police operation in Northern Ireland's history.
The signs went up today. The road closures will remain in place for the next 4 weeks. A new phase of security is underway as contractors complete the €5 million security fencing around the G8 summit venue. 8,000 officers, over a third brought in from England and Wales, will be involved in Northern Ireland's biggest ever police operation. Inside the Lochern Resort Hotel, staff familiarise themselves with the high-profile guests who will stay here for 2 days in the middle of this month. It's a remarkable story for a hotel put into receivership 2 years ago. Built and opened at a cost of over £30 million just 4 years before.
I'm extremely honoured to be in this position. I have a wonderful property and I'm pleased to look around me at the beauty of the town, of the area, of the county, of the lakelands, and here I am. You know, you talk about pinching yourself. Yes, I got to wake up some mornings and think, is it really happening?
The hotel is on the market for £10 million. The G8 has given it new life, and the successful tender bid will be decided at the end of this month. Tommy Gorman, RTE News, County Fermanagh.
The US First Lady Michelle Obama and her 2 daughters are due to visit Dublin during the G8 summit, which takes place in Northern Ireland later this month. Mrs Obama and Sasha Emilia are scheduled to attend a number of events in Dublin, but the family is not expected to visit Moneygall. US President Barack Obama is one of a number of world leaders who will attend the summit at Lochern Golf Resort in Fermanagh. The Irish-born academic and author Samantha Power has been nominated by President Barack Obama to be the American ambassador to the United Nations. Ms. Power has been an advisor to President Obama for the past 4 years. Her nomination was made possible by the promotion of Susan Rice to the top security advisor job in the White House.
It's the cabinet reshuffle that's been expected for months. Susan Rice, the current ambassador to the UN, has been a controversial figure. Republicans blocked her chances of succeeding Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State because of comments she made on the instructions of the White House, denying that the deaths of 4 Americans in Libya were the result of terrorist activities. She now takes up the senior role in security at the White House. Her replacement will be Dublin-born Samantha Power from Castleknock, formerly a close advisor to President Barack Obama. She lived in Ireland until she was 9 when the family emigrated to Pennsylvania, from which time, she told the audience here, she spent hours in front of the mirror practicing her American accent and trying to rid herself of her Irish brogue.
The question of what the United Nations can accomplish for the world and for the United States remains a pressing one. I have seen UN aid workers enduring shellfire to deliver food to the people of Sudan. Yet I've also seen UN peacekeepers fail to protect the people of Bosnia. As the most powerful and inspiring country on this earth, we have a critical role to play in insisting that the institution meet the necessities of our time.
Power came to prominence after her book, America and the Age of Genocide, highlighted the moral dilemmas arising from the slaughter in Rwanda. That book won a Pulitzer Prize. Her human rights focus makes her a natural fit for the top American job at the UN. But this is no done deal. She has to be confirmed by the Senate. And Congress has been very successful of late in blocking initiatives of President Obama. Richard Downs, RTE News, Washington.
After years of cutbacks, an additional €150 million is to be spent on roads, local authority housing and schools this year. The government has admitted the amount of money is modest, but says it will be a boost for the construction industry.
In theory, spending on capital, such as roads and schools, cuts unemployment and helps stimulate the economy. In practice, spending on these projects has been a casualty of the crash. But today the government announced additional funding. Under the €150 million plan, €50 million will go to insulate 25,000 local authority homes. €50 million will replace 10 schools and extend 18 others. And a further €50 million will go to upgrade 600 kilometres of roads.
€150 million of new money to go to improve county roads, to build schools that are necessary, and to insulate houses that need insulation is really good news.
But Fianna Fáil says it doesn't come close to making up for earlier cutbacks.
For this year's budget, the government planned to spend $500 million less on capital expenditure than they did last year. They've announced an extra $150 million today. That goes nowhere making up the cutbacks they've already announced for this year.
In addition to the projects announced today, the government says it's also making good progress on €250 million of public-private partnerships. Previously, these type of schemes had been stalled because private investors were reluctant to invest in Ireland because of its poor credit rating. Minister Howlin said he can't guarantee if they will all go ahead, but if they do, he argues, it will support an additional 13,000 jobs. David Murphy, RTÉ News.
The death has been announced of the former Republican Sinn Féin President Ruaidhrí Ó Brádaig. He was 80 years old. A Sinn Féin TD for Longford Westmeath in the 1950s, Mr Ó Brádaig then became the president of Republican Sinn Féin in 1987.
Born into a staunchly Republican household in Longford town, Ruaidhrí Ó Brádaig was himself a lifelong Republican who was active in the IRA and in Sinn Féin. He was part of the border campaign in the 1950s, which resulted in his internment in the Curragh. He was elected a TD for Longford Westmeath in 1957, but never attended the Dáil as an abstentionist. For a short time, he was Chief of Staff of the IRA and spent many years on the IRA's controlling Army Council. In 1970, he split with Sinn Féin over the ending of abstentionism and founded Provisional Sinn Féin with some of the men who were to go on to take central roles in the peace process.
We adhere to the Sinn Féin constitution, which does not recognise Westminster, Stormont or Leinster House and recognises only a 32-county parliament.
In 1986, however, Provisional Sinn Féin decided they would take seats in the Dáil, so Ó Brádaig split again and founded Republican Sinn Féin. He went on to oppose the Good Friday Agreement.
What we know as the peace process to him would have been accepting something they could have had all along, and what was all the bloodshed for, and he held to his principles. Ruaidhrí Ó Brádaig was one of the major figures of the Republican movement.
Ruaidhrí Ó Brádaig remained president of Republican Sinn Féin until 2009. He is survived by his wife and family. Joe McGrady, RTE News.
Here, while much of the country was basking in warm sunshine today, Met Éireann confirmed that the spring months were colder and wetter than most years on record.
The sun made a long overdue reappearance today. Summer seems to have arrived, with much of the country experiencing its warmest day so far this year. People right up and down the island making the most of the heat. But on the same day, the weather forecasters got to deliver some good news. Confirmation of what many of us already knew. Spring 2013 was one of the colder on record. Met Éireann's spring summary found that Dublin had its worst springtime in 62 years. Temperatures were below average everywhere in the country, while rainfall in most places was above average. So with so much cold weather over recent months, followed by this mini heatwave of recent days, what exactly is happening with Irish weather? Well, climate experts say they can't be sure, but the data would indicate that there may be further big swings in the weather in the coming years.
The best guide we have to future climate are the computer models, but we're well aware they're not perfect. However, they seem to give a consistent signal, which is that extreme events will become more frequent and indeed more severe in the future. And the flooding that we're witnessing in Central Europe seems to bear that out.
So what are the chances of the current good spell lasting?
This warm spell looks set to continue for the rest of this week, probably through next weekend, and maybe even if we're lucky for the early days of next week as well.
Music to the ears of sun seekers everywhere. Paul Colgan, RTE News.
Now, the Irish author Kevin Barry has won the Impact Dublin Literary Award with his first novel, City of Bohan. It's the third time an Irish writer has won the €100,000 prize, which is one of the most lucrative awards in the world.
Whatever is wrong with us is coming in off that river. No argument. The taint of badness on the city's air is a taint off that river.
It may be his debut novel, but Kevin Barry has beaten other more established writers to take home this prize.
It means I'm getting a big pot of cash on a sunny day, so it's a really fantastic feeling, and it's a great award.
City of Bohan is set in 2053 in a fictional town in the west of Ireland.
It's kind of it's gang wars and love triangles and all sorts going on, so it's kind of written in Technicolor, you know. And I just had great fun with it. It was great fun to write it, and hopefully if the writer is having fun, the reader is having some fun down the line.
The book was chosen from a short list of 10 authors, including Haruki Murakami and Michel Houellebecq.
I think the language, initially, this was the one book that didn't actually invent a new language, but crafted an idiolect so that you had a sense of being in the company of something new and exciting.
This award is organised by Dublin City Libraries and began with a long list of 154 books nominated by public libraries around the world. Kevin Barry is now working on his second book along with more short stories. Sandra Hurley, RTE News.
Finally tonight, tens of thousands of women took part in the Flora Women's Mini Marathon today, said to be the biggest event of its kind in the world.
Limbering up before the big race, the sun shining down on the thousands of women taking part. Some running for fun, some trying to run, and some with a special reason.
My cousin took his own life last year, so basically we're doing it in his memory.
My mother-in-law passed away in St. Vincent's Hospital in December, and we just want to give a little bit back to them.
Everyone there enjoying the build-up.
The most important aspect of the Women's Mini Marathon is the social interaction, the fun, the camaraderie, and all the women having great fun on such a day.
The race got underway at 2 o'clock, setting off from Fitzwilliam Square.
It's the charities that really benefit from this race. It's expected that €12 million will be raised this year.
Tipperary's Siobhan O'Doherty was the first to cross the finish line in a time of 34:20. But for everyone, it was a day of achievement. Sinead Hussey, RTE News.
The news from Ireland was, as usual, brought to you by RTE, Ireland's national broadcasting service. And now we visit places of interest in North Clare, including the country's #1 visitor attraction, the Cliffs of Moher, also the Alwee Caves and the fascinating region of the Burn.
Here we are in the County Clare, and it's a long, long way from here to there. There's the Burn and the Cliffs of Moher and the Tullen.
North Clare, an extraordinarily diverse region with a wild and rugged coastline, stony, stark landscapes and warm, friendly pubs famous for their traditional music sessions. One of the best-known sites in the area, and indeed in the country, is the Cliffs of Moher. 5 miles of dramatic cliff top with superb views on all sides. The cliffs are now more accessible with new pathways and observation areas. A state-of-the-art visitor centre was opened, tucked discreetly into the landscape.
The Cliffs of Moher is one of the world's most amazing attractions. It's actually one of the top attractions in Ireland, and it's 200 metres high above sea level. So it's absolutely spectacular to see and view. A lot of work has gone on at the cliffs, and there are now 3 pathways leading up to it, which are wheelchair and buggy accessible. And once you come up there, there are 4 different viewing points. Everybody gets a different view and a different perspective. One of the best viewing points at the cliffs is actually O'Brien's Tower, which was built in 1835. And when you come up to O'Brien's Tower and you look out, you can see right across to the Aran Islands, the 12 Pins, Galway Bay, and actually south of Loop Head. Also, when you look to your left up at O'Brien's Tower, you can see the colony of seabirds that live there. There are 20 different species of nesting birds. Walking along the cliffs is just amazing. In fact, it's breathtaking. To go up there and just experience it, you feel you're in a whole other world. You're really getting a sense of where the sea and the land meet. A good starting point for your journey to the cliffs is the new interpretive centre, and when you come in there you just get an idea of what to expect at the cliffs and the history and the geology of the cliffs. Also, if the weather is bad and you don't manage to go up to the cliffs, there is the virtual reality ledge, which gives you that feeling and sense of being at the cliffs and down in under where the marine life is.
Oh, Lisdoon Varna.
Travelling north from the Cliffs of Moher to Lisdoon Varna, then taking the coastal route to Ballyvaughan, one passes some of the most spectacular scenery in the country. Near Ballyvaughan is the Alwee Caves, an explorer's dream, containing rock formations dating back more than 2 million years. The complex attracts large numbers of visitors, including professional potholers from around the world.
Well, Alby Cave is possibly Ireland's most famous cave that you can visit. It's very accessible to the public. We get over 150,000-60,000 visitors a year. The cave tour itself takes you into the heart of the mountain. The cave was discovered in 1940. A local farmer found it completely by accident, and in 1976 2 local families opened it to the public. On entering Alby Cave, people's first impression, they think it's man-made, but when they find out that it was a dried-out underground riverbed that flowed for almost 2 million years, they're just amazed. The trail through the Alby Caves, it's pathed 1/3 of a mile. On our way through, we can see where European brown bears once lived. They would hibernate there for the winter months, extinct for the last 1,000 years, so it's quite unique. We can see where bears actually lived in the cave in the form of hibernation pits, are also called bear beds. In one of the pits, we have bones dating over 1,200 years, the remains of a European brown bear. Bones were discovered in one of the pits. One of the most dramatic features of Alby Cave itself has to be the underground river in the form of a waterfall. Almost in the heart of the mountain, gives you a perfect example of the underground rivers through the burn itself.
The Alwy Cave complex has expanded in recent years to include a restaurant, stores and a cheese-making facility where visitors can taste, buy and watch the popular Burn Gold cheese being made.
I'm going to get black pepper and
But he's got amazing hearing. I can't emphasise enough to you how good it is.
A new addition is the Birds of Prey Educational Centre, which houses the country's largest collection of wild birds.
At Alwy Cave, there's something for everybody. You can cave, you can shop for unusual gifts, you can watch cheese being made in our farm shop dairy, and you can marvel at the wonderful species of birds that we have in the Burren Bird of Prey Centre.
This is Huey. I'm James. Very welcome to the Burren Bird of Prey Centre. Okay, I'm going to fly 3 different species for you this afternoon. Right.
The Burren Bird of Prey and Educational Centre opened in March. There's a strong emphasis on the educational and the conservation of the birds. Birds of prey were hunted to extinction in Ireland, and we're working with various programmes within Ireland on the reintroduction of the birds.
It's not going to happen, is it?
Not alone do the visitors get to see the birds in the open-fronted aviaries and marvel at the flying displays, but they also get the opportunity to hold the birds, to interact with the birds and the bird handlers, and learn about the ancient art of falconry. So there's something here for all of the family, and everyone gets to participate.
North Clare is also famous for another wonder of nature, the limestone plateaus of the Burren. Covering over 100 square miles, the Burren includes well-preserved archaeological relics, unique geology and flora and fauna found nowhere else in the country.
The word Burren comes from the Irish word burren, which means rocky place, which is a fairly dull description of what is a remarkably rich and diverse landscape. It's a unique landscape. There's nowhere quite in the world, I think, like the Burren. One of the best things you could possibly do when you come to the Burren is to drop in here to the Burren Centre in Kilfenora to have a first-hand view or overview of what the Burren is all about before heading off into the wilds of the Burren to explore for yourself. There's many different places to see in the Burren, many very beautiful places. One of my personal favourites would be Mullaghmore, which is at the heart of the Burren National Park. It's one of the most magnificent landscapes you'll find anywhere in Ireland. You have this beautiful mountain, which some people think looks like a collapsed sponge cake. But you also, in the foreground, have this beautiful lake. And this lake is a very special lake. It's a turlough, or a disappearing lake. So when you come back in summertime, this lake might be much smaller, might even be here at all. Now, what I find very interesting and appealing about the Burren is that, on the one hand, you have this beautiful landscape, this karst landscape, as it's described. But at a very local level, at a microcosmic level almost, you have an equally fascinating landscape. Down here at ground level, you have big clints or blocks of rock, limestone rock. In between, you have these fissures called grikes. Now, within the grikes, you have a very unusual and unique flora because the grikes are very dark and damp. On the surface of the rock, then, you get different plants which like light, a lot of light, and a very dry environment. So you get all these different species surviving within a very small area. Now, there's an incredible richness of archaeology and history as well in the Burren. We have, of course, portal tombs, which are maybe 6,000 years old. We have wedge tombs, maybe 70 of them in the Burren, which are about 4,500 years old. Wedge tombs are so called because they open out like a wedge shape facing out to the setting sun, which is, of course, very appropriate for a burial monument.
Some of the many areas of interest there in North County Clare. Well, that's it for another week here on Out of Ireland. Don't forget to join us at the same time next week. But for now, from all of us here, I'm Patricia O'Reilly. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
This program is brought to you in part by CIE Tours International. For over 80 years featuring all-inclusive tours and go-as-you-please value vacations throughout Ireland and Britain. CIEtours.com. And by Tourism Ireland, celebrating a special year in Ireland, The Gathering 2013. A year-long countrywide celebration of music, food, culture, and unique events. Ireland.com. And by...
Today you'll find the Irish Americans where the need is greatest, giving time, money, talent, and concern to whomever needs it most, contributing as only the Irish can to the spirit of America. Mutual of America, your retirement company.